Okay, awesome. Welcome everybody to Exploring Trichotillomania. We're here today with the SSD at UVic, University of Victoria, British Columbia. Thank you so much for having me. I am really excited. This was a presentation that is a lot of information and there's a lot of stuff just because I'm so passionate about Trich and it's something that I love talking to people about, which is kind of ironic. We'll get into the lore. But it's a little ironic because I used to be deathly afraid of talking about my Trich and talking about my mental health in general. So we'll get into that of like, how did I end up here? But today's presentation is brought to you by the good people at BFRB Friends, which is me. BFRB Friends, we do free support meetings that are bi-weekly and online. So you can join from anywhere in the world as long as the time zone permits. We do workshops just like this. So if you are ever in a space, a school, a workplace where you think a conversation around trichotillomania, around mental health, around body-focused repetitive behaviors would be helpful, I'm happy to do it and I'm happy to be there. And finally, it's just really a space where we can talk really openly and candidly about Trich, like, you know, without the fear of judgment, which I think is something a lot of us are familiar with. So that's just a little bit about today. We'll be here for roughly an hour for the presentation, but I'll get into a couple like housekeeping notes to start us off. So the presentation is being recorded, just so everyone is aware. That means the recording will be available to view on the website. So you'll get an email from the amazing Marissa, the amazing people at the SSD. And so you can rewatch it. You can, send it to your friends, whatever it is you want to do. The recording will be available. The Q&A portion that's at the end of today's session won't be recorded, but will still be on the Zoom. So hello, Zoom people. Hello, people in my computer. Really great to have you. And feel free to drop any comments in the Zoom chat box. Marissa will be standing by. Operators will be standing by to receive those questions. So if you have questions like throughout the presentation, you can just like pop them in there. And then if I don't address it at some point in the slides, we can talk about it more at the end. Also, I mean, this is more so for the people that come in person, but we'll take a couple videos, take a couple photos. Zoom people, you don't need to worry about anything. You are in the comfort of wherever you are. So you're all good to go there. So that's super easy. Just a little bit about me and Joyce and who is she and why is she here. It's 4 things, but I'll elaborate a little bit because there's like 20 years of like lore happening in these slides. And it's a lot to get into, but I'll give you the long story short version. So I'm someone that's lived with trichotillomania for the past 20 years of my life and counting. I try to emphasize as much as I can that I still pull every day. This is not like an evangelical telecast on how to stop pulling forever and how to like get rid of your BFRB for good. If that's what you signed up for, I'm very sorry. We did not advertise that properly. But I've had trichotillomania for the majority of my life, still pull every day, but the work I do and the content I create, it's really around like learning how to coexist with my trichotillomania. So I started pulling when I was about 8 years old, but I didn't actually start with hair pulling. I don't know if this happens to other people, but I started with nail biting. I was like a nail biter first. And then for a lot of people, the nail biting is what sticks, but didn't stick for me. I went from nail biting and then hair like twirling. I was just a very tactile kid, hence the fact that I'm holding a microphone, a mouse, and a squishy cube all at the same time. I feel like this is so on brand for me. And then eventually from touching my hair, I started pulling it by the follicle. And then that is like the thing that stuck with me for so many years. And it's basically been like on and off for most of my life. But I started sharing my Trich like publicly in 2019. This was right after I'd graduated from university. So if anyone's like waiting for a canon event to happen, that might be it. But the main thing that changed for me between like hiding my trick from everyone I know to I'm gonna tell everybody that there is to know about my trick. I was basically at this crossroads in 2019 where I was thinking about, is hiding my trick making my life better or is it making my life worse? I think for a lot of people, well, me included, I felt a lot of shame and I felt a lot of guilt around the fact that I compulsively pulled out my own hair and didn't really know like what to do about that. So I think for a while, hiding it was actually bad, like doing something good for me. I felt kind of protected. I felt kind of safe. I had this sense that like, oh, no one can like doubt me. No one's gonna like question my like willpower, so to speak. If they don't know this like part of me. If I hide my mental illness, no one can like judge me for it. And that was really reassuring for me, actually. Um, at that crossroads, though, is hiding my trick making my life better or worse? At that point, I kind of had to make a decision that it was making my life worse at that point. Basically, a lot of people will ask me, like, oh, it's so scary to share your story with people, and it's scary to like talk about trick and scary to like open up about it. But to me, it was scarier to like not tell anybody or to never tell anybody. I basically like imagined my life like being, I don't know, 70 or 80 years old and then wondering like, oh, am I gonna be like trying to hide my bald spots when I'm like 70? I don't know. That is really the event that got me, kind of pushed me over the edge. I started sharing my journey on Instagram, primarily to only people that I knew in real life, which was very, very scary. But what that experience taught me was that, first of all, nobody really like cared that much when I started talking about it. It like sounds very cool and epic, but I promise you, when it actually happened, it was a very underwhelming experience. Um, and then, yeah, after I told people about it, it was underwhelming, but then at the same time, people were also very compassionate about it. So we can talk more about like, we're going to talk more about telling people in your life and like what that can look like, pros and cons, and like how to build yourself up to it as well. So hang tight, we'll get there. Some random side quests that I've been on is I've worn the wigs, I've done the extensions, I've shaved my head, all in the name of Trichotillomania. So if anyone has questions about any of these experiences, I love talking about it. And just like super quick, I don't recommend, or what do I not recommend? I recommend the wigs. I think wigs is like good and helpful. I don't recommend the extensions. I always recommend shaving your head though. Like that is something I'm always going to be behind. Yeah, we got more people in the call. Woo! And finally, just a little bit of background about my flavor, my version of Trichotillomania, because it is totally different for everybody, is that I mainly pull from my scalp, always have, always will, probably, but occasionally I do also pick my skin and pull my body hair. So we'll talk a little bit about like the umbrella of BFRBs, of Trichotillomania, and like how they kind of work together. But most of the time, if you are, I don't know, if you experience one, like if you experience Trichotillomania, the skin picking and nail biting and stuff is not really far behind. So quick rundown of today's agenda. I'm also just going to do a quick time check for myself. 15. Okay, good. Excellent. And a quick rundown of today's agenda of what we're going to cover. This sounds very basic, but I promise you there's quite a lot. And if I go through anything too quickly, feel free to like, flag somebody, give us a little wave or something. I'm happy to like read, like talk through things some more. And of course, if you have any questions along the way, let's do it. This is also the first time I'm doing a presentation for possibly some people who don't know about Trichotillomania, or maybe this is like your first time like joining a presentation or like learning about it. So I'm going to do a quick like trick 101, make sure we're all on the same page. If I'm like using terms that sound really strange, I want to make sure everyone is on the same page with that. Talk about why is it so hard to stop the $1 million question of our lives. how to stop and like what that could look like for everybody. And then talking about our trick to others, because I do think that makes the biggest difference in someone's trick journey. And then I have some further reading. I don't know why. I just feel like a university like workshop. Like, do you guys like further reading? I don't know. I like further reading. And then hopefully by the time we get there, we'll have maybe 20 to 30 minutes for Q&A is my target. So wish me luck, guys. Okay. Other than the agenda, this slide is like my shining star. This is like my golden child. If you don't absorb anything else from me or this presentation today, this is the only thing I want you guys to care about. This right click experience here. Wow. This is the slide that I think is the most important because, like I was saying, there are so many things to talk about around trichotillomania. There are so many avenues and nuances and questions and situations that we could get into, and I love getting into, but we can't. If you really want to, tell people to bring me back. I will come back to do this. But my real goal today, my real secret agenda is that today isn't the last time you have a conversation about trichotillomania. I hope this is the first one. I really hope this isn't the last, because the more people we have talking about trick, the better the world is, and then the more open people are to it. So this is my request to you, humble viewers of the future who are watching the replay of this. I'm talking to you. This is what really, really matters to me. So quick not so quick rundown of trichotillomania in case this is just your first time coming to a presentation about it. But this super long word, it's a compulsive hair pulling condition. It affects 1 in 5 people. So it's something that is also severely underreported because of the shame and the guilt that comes with it. And it also exists on a really wide spectrum. So there are some people that, they will pull out a gray hair when they see one. And that's it. That's the extent of their trichotillomania. Or they'll think like, oh, that's like a weird, wiry hair. Let me just get that out real easy. And that could be the extent of their trichotillomania. And then on the other side of the spectrum, there are people that hold their hair to the point of bald spots, complete baldness, any slice of hair loss. So trichotillomania exists on a very wide spectrum. And it can occur anywhere you can grow hair on your body. It doesn't really discriminate body-wise. And it's basically a presentation of over grooming. So a lot of us, there's kind of a regular standard level of grooming. Trichotillomania is when you crank that up to 100. What causes the pulling to happen? So this would be I think for a lot of people, it's when they're studying, when they're focusing, when they're working, computer time, phone time. But essentially, to really distill it down, it's a moment where your body's needing some regulation. So you're either overstimulated or you're understimulated. That's managing stress, that's boredom, discomfort, focus. So it can actually come from physical discomforts, but then also mental or emotional discomforts as well. So if you are feeling stressed about a test coming up, if you are nervous while driving, if you are, I don't know, having a fight with your ex in the middle of the street, that's stressful too. Any negative emotion that leads to over or understimulation can cause the hair pulling. Are we good for questions so far? Okay. Guys, throw some thumbs ups in there. Just make sure, everything's going well. Why does trick, so the last question was about why does trick happen in each instance that it happens? Why when I am sitting down with my phone and I just had a long day at work and I'm finally decompressing and relaxing, that's, that instance of trick. This question is, why did trick start? Why did it start in me? Why did it start maybe in you? And long story, because this is a long story, At some point in life, neural pathway is formed between pulling the hair and a moment of relief. So for some people, they start pulling when they are very, very young. So like, I guess like infancy. So that's like babies, 1 to 2 years old. Some people it develops in like childhood. For some people it develops in like teenage, preteen years. Some people develop it in adulthood as well. It's really like a whole range of experiences, but at whatever point it's developing, you're experiencing this connection between relief and the hair pulling that's causing the relief. And then this pathway gets reinforced over and over and over again. For me personally, when I started pulling my hair when I was a little kid, I didn't actually learn what trichotillomania was until about 5 years after I started pulling. So if you imagine what 5 years of reinforcing a neural pathway can do, you know, it really like solidified things. Like by the time I had learned about what trich was, and by the time, you know, my parents had caught on and it's like, oh, she's losing a lot of hair. Oh, there's a lot of hair on the floor. By the time we had hit that point, it was not to say it was like too late, but by that time I was really committed to this like hair pulling relief cycle. I was like very much clocked in. And then the reason it's so hard to stop, like I was saying, is that it's really hard to change a neural pathway when it's working really, really, really well. Really is bolded for a reason. Like, why would, like, if something is working for my body, why would my body just like stop doing it? You know, it's like a perfect waving red flag that my body like needs something. It's like hungry, it's thirsty, it's tired, it's overstimulated, it's anxious. That's the pulling has done a very good job of like communicating that to the rest of my body. There's no reason it should stop, because it's worked so well. So if you've ever wondered like, oh, I wish I can just, you know, try harder or have more willpower or anything of the sort, this is probably why. And we'll get into that even more. Is it possible to stop completely? I think that's the $2 million question, maybe. Maybe bring me back and we can discuss. Yeah, we'll see. But personally, my answer is no, as of right now, based on, you know, kind of everything I've learned about BFRBs. Like, I think for a lot of people, it can go into like a remission, like a hibernation in a way. I think for a lot of people, the pulling can slow down, like to a very low level. But I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that it would ever go away completely. It's hard for me to imagine that, even like for myself, honestly. And then why is this the only time I'm hearing about trichotillomania in general? Well, there's a lot of shame around hair loss. There's a lot of talk around conventional beauty standards that really keeps us hiding, and it does a very, very good job of it, unfortunately. This was actually a question that someone submitted, so thank you for sending in your questions, but they wanted to hear a little bit about whether trichotillomania is a choice. I think they mentioned that they heard this from someone in their life, and like, why can't I just stop pulling if I like don't try hard enough? And this is kind of the cheeky answer, but like, can you use willpower to resist scratching a mosquito bite? Can I use more effort to like see long distances despite my astigmatism? That's kind of like the parallel that's like what we're working with trichotillomania. I think a lot of people, maybe neurotypical people who don't fully understand the extent of trich, you know, a lot of people can only see the physical side of it. So they can only see that we're like physically pulling the hair or physically picking the skin. But what they don't realize is there's like a whole like deep emotional experience happening. Yeah, that really has nothing to do with like willpower or anything like that. So we're going to talk about the BFRB cycle now that we're all on the same page and we are all, you know, yeah, we're all caught up with trichotillomania and what's going on with it. But this is BFRB cycle. If you're thinking maybe to yourself, if you are someone who's experienced a BFRB, a body-focused repetitive behavior, and you're looking at this and you're like, well, okay, but if it was this simple, why haven't I like clocked this before? And that's probably because this cycle, although, looks large and maybe slow, I'd say the average timeline of this cycle like happening is probably like a fraction of a second, like half a second. We're talking about like slivers of seconds where you are going through a discomfort, urge, behavior relief cycle, 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 cycle. Like it's like trying to, I don't know, it's like trying to visualize like how your body processes stress. Okay. BFRB stands for body focused repetitive behavior. And that, thank you for mentioning, because I forgot to mention, BFRB is the umbrella term that actually encompasses three main types of behaviors. BFRBs covers skin picking, dermatillomania, hair pulling, trichotillomania, nail biting, the mania that I always forget, but nail biting is kind of the third main one. And then within each of those, there's a whole lot of variation. So even things like biting the inside of your cheeks, biting your lips as well. Underneath trichotillomania, there's another term called trichophagia, which is like you're pulling out the hair, but then you also have this compulsive urge to like consume the hair as well. So that's something that also happens to people. And then there's a skin version of that as well. So BFRB is like the big umbrella term that kind of captures all of those things. Great question. I was just saying this cycle happens very, very quickly, and it's okay if you've never been able to like catch it or been able to notice it. I'm like, I probably haven't even like, I feel like I barely scratched the surface of this like chart. It's just it's in such an early stage, but it is so just, what's it called? Like affirming for me to see like, yeah, like I do feel all these things. And I feel like with the design of this, it's a little slightly misleading. Oh, actually, you guys can see my mouse. Okay, perfect. It's slightly misleading because I think a lot of us would think that we are actually starting up here. Let's like, oh yeah, the compulsive behavior. That's the pulling, that's the picking. That's the part like my parents would yell at me for. That's the part that like my teachers would pull me aside for a chat for. So this is kind of the star of the show, but in reality, this is like the real public enemy number one. We're actually going to start at the bottom of it, which is that discomfort, dysregulation feeling. So if you go back to that question I had, why does trichotillomania like occur? Like, why do I, in my everyday life, God's green earth, feel the need to compulsively pull out my hair? A lot of it does come from this discomfort, dysregulation experience. So as I was saying earlier, there's like physical aspects of it. Like whenever I have a headache, I pull more. I got my vaccine last week, woo woo. But with my sore arm, pulled up a storm because my body was just so off balance, so dysregulated, that it needed something to regulate itself. And lucky for me, my body's got something very, very useful and very convenient to access. But then with those non-physical discomforts, like the frustration, guilt, the stress of hiding the behavior, lying to people, like the number of people I've had to say that I got a bad haircut is really painful, and the hopelessness. So even though the pulling of the hair is kind of the most visible part, I would actually encourage you to think about like, okay, what's happening before that hair even comes out? Because most of the time it's something here. After that dysregulation, and still a step before the pulling, is actually the urge. A lot of this can look like dopamine searching. So with BFRBs, with trichotillomania, there's a lot of it actually doesn't have to do with like pulling the hair. A lot of it's actually like looking for the perfect hair, the perfect piece of skin, the perfect spot. Like I feel like if I ask people, they spend more time looking for the hair than they do actually like pulling the hair out. But then pulling the hair out is kind of the dramatic part. So that's the part we all kind of recognize more. So body scanning, finding that hair that's like too thin, too thick, whatever. Even I feel like doom scrolling is kind of a part of this too. And they kind of feed into each other. So I'm uncomfortable. Now I'm like looking for a way to fix that discomfort. And oh, what's this? Oh, it's a hair. It's too thick, it's too thin, it's too red, it's too light, it's too dark, whatever it is. I've now found something that gives me a false sense of control, essentially. Um, I'm taking that discomfort feeling I have. My body is saying, "Oh God, like I really don't like this. Like let's try to regulate. Here, let's like look for something to regulate myself." Boom. Here's a little hair. Let's get that out and let's pull it out. A lot of the times, the actual act of pulling, it's then followed by a ritual of there's kind of like a ritual around like disposing of the hair. So some people like to touch it or place like the follicle on their skin, on their lip. Some people will curl the hair. Some people will just throw it on the ground. It really varies person by person. But I do think that here we go. I do think that ritual aspect following the hair coming out is also very important. So I feel like again, the misguided villain, like we all think the real villain is actually pulling the hair, but then I don't know, there's all these things around it that amplify the experience for us. Oh, but look, after we've been through all that, and after we've searched for a solution and we found the solution and that hair is gone, it's no longer part of our head. Look, we get relief and everything is right in the world. Everything's right as rain. We get that satisfaction of finding the perfect hair in the moment. And, you know, it gives this like false sense of productivity. That's how I've heard like somebody describe it to me before. But it gives you this feeling of like, oh, I've like accomplished something. I'm in control. Control is a big theme. This could basically be called the control presentation. But you know, you get a feeling of control and satisfaction afterwards. So a lot of people actually, like when they come to meetings for the first time, they'll say, like, "Oh, I know it's kind of weird, but I actually really like pulling out my hair because it's so satisfying." And it's like, "Yep, join the club, take a number." That is absolutely like a universal experience. So you're not alone in that. We're all happy and we're all relieved and we're all doing great. But unfortunately, this is a cycle. As we said, spoiler alert. Once we are kind of done enjoying the dopamine of the relief, enjoying the dopamine of finding the perfect hair, a lot of the times those like negative discomfort feelings will come back. If anything, I think the second time around, it gets even harder because now you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't have pulled that. Oh, like, why did I do that? Oh my gosh, I have so little self-control. I have no discipline. What's the matter with me? And then the negative self-talk kicks in, sends you on the cycle more and more and more. So it might get you thinking, like, screw that cycle. I can just try harder. I can try harder and then I'll pull less. And then everything will be good because, you know, in this cycle, you know, maybe there's just an opportunity for that. Maybe all those people, maybe my parents were right. Okay. Maybe all of our parents and all of those like teachers were right back then. Maybe if we just tried a little harder, we would be able to pull less. Well, I have a visual that I'm working on, so bear with me. It's a little bit like, it's a little bit black and white. But this is very similar to something called the restrict and binge cycle as well. So if you're someone who's familiar with like the cycle of addiction, the cycle of eating disorders is pretty similar to this as well. This is kind of what it looks like based on like my own experience of all the times I stopped myself from pulling. And rather than this like the timeline of this graph could be over like minutes, hours, it could be days, it could be like months where I'm just like pushing myself more and more and more. It's like, stop pulling. You don't need it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And resisting until eventually I've worked myself so far up on the stress and the urge like scale that when I'm coming down, it's coming down fast and it's coming down hard. So this is kind of why I think the I don't know, like the idea of restriction is tricky and can be a little bit dangerous as well. Like I I don't know, I don't love the idea of like we need to like force ourselves to function in a certain way or to live by the way of like, you know, neurotypical people, I guess. Oh my god. My like is not real down here. So fast. But thank you. Um just like a little thing about restriction. So I think for a lot of people, this kind of graph is a little bit attractive because you don't, or, you know, maybe we're kind of ignoring this big peak. That's the elephant in the room there. I think this part of the graph is very appealing because, yeah, like, yeah, my pulling's under control for a little bit until it's not. So I just wanted to like throw that idea out at everybody and, you know, maybe introduce something new because definitely when I was growing up, this was kind of the way to do it, or this was what was taught to me as like the ideal, I guess, the ideal approach to managing trick. But in reality, again, I pull every single day. I'm always proud to be part of that 0-day pull free club, and I'm happy to be there. Another helpful concept that I kind of carry around in my BFRB toolkit back pocket here is understanding the difference between a neurotypical and neurodivergent range of psychological tolerance. So every single person has a certain range where, you know, if you're overstimulated or understimulated, and then in the middle of that, we have a certain range where we're comfortable and we are relaxed and we feel regulated. Someone tell me how many times I've said regulated in this presentation. But everybody has a certain range in the middle. Unfortunately for us, our range is just a little bit smaller. I find that with a lot of people like living with BFRBs, the body focused repetitive behaviors, for a lot of us, it's really hard to like feel comfortable. Most of the time we're either over or we're under, and it can be very tricky to like hit that middle range. And then because it's so hard to hit that middle range, it's like, okay, I'm either pulling because I'm overstimulated or I'm pulling because I'm under. And it's like, God, like when am I going to be in that green spot? And that is a good segue into the next section. How do we get to that green spot? Like, what is it? Because I feel like, yeah, majority of life is just like the 2 pink sides, and that green spot is a hard spot to hit. We're going to talk about how to stop. You know, loosely. You guys, anyone who's like been around me and my BFRB talks before, they're like, she's not really going to tell us how to stop. And it's true. I'm not. It's a little bit misleading. But in the case of like compulsive hair pulling, there's 2 approaches here. We can either prevent the pulling from happening, so that's preventing us from even pulling the hair in the first place, or maybe we're already in the middle of pulling. We're in that cycle that we've talked about on that nice big blue slide. We're already in the cycle of pulling. How can I interrupt my pulling? And then we'll also talk about why it's like really hard to do either of these. Because again, anything that I talk about on the next slides, I promise, like this is my guarantee, it's that they won't be as satisfying as pulling. Like straight up, the compulsive hair pulling is compulsive and second nature for a lot of us for a reason, and it's because our brain likes it so much. So introducing something new, it's like introducing like your dog to a new toy, even though it loves its old toy. It's like, yes, my little, I don't know, T-Rex stuffy is just a shred of fabric, but he loves it. So my BFRB is like shredded up fabric on the floor, but apparently my brain is still gnawing on it constantly. Let's first talk about the interruption process of you're already in a pulling cycle. What can that, like, what can even interrupt it? What could possibly get between me and finding that perfect hair? And again, not as satisfying as BFRBs. I think like my instinct when I see lists like these, or any list that's like here are 10 ways to stop pulling out your hair. I go in with an air of skepticism, and you should too, because I think that's just being realistic, and I think that's totally okay. But I'm sharing this from a place from someone who's talked to a lot of people about their trichotillomania, and unfortunately, a lot of them are very boring and very like unsexy and unexciting, but they do work. And I just highlighted two of like my favorites. I'll just kind of let everyone read the screen if that's okay. But the main like takeaway from these options, and I think the main takeaway from trying to interrupt your BFRB is, first of all, knowing it won't hit the same, won't hit as well. But then secondly, it's still worth trying. Like it's still worth a shot. You could have a urge to pull that's like a level 10. You could also have some days where your urge to pull is like a level 2. Like maybe we don't have to do the level 10 ones. Maybe we can just hit those level 2s. And like if you interrupt every time you have a level 2 pull urge, like that's not nothing. That means something. Like that's definitely a big, like that can lead to a really big change in your life and like your trick experience. If we're talking about trying to prevent the hair pulling from happening, so let's say like we wake up, we're having a great day and everything is cool and fine and dandy, but we don't want to pull and we want to do what we can to like prevent it from pulling. Maybe instead of thinking about it strictly, like instead of strictly thinking about the hair pulling on its own, ask ourselves, how can I prevent myself from getting dysregulated today? And then I guess that then leads into the question, what are the things that dysregulates me the most? What are the things that I can't avoid, that I can avoid? And you can kind of go from there. Again, very boring, but true. But a lot of the times it is really just having the awareness that I have the urge to pull. And part of that is also like feeling okay with telling yourself that and feeling okay with like, recognizing that part of yourself. And then also just trying different things. Like I think a big roadblock for me personally was looking at things like this, having that skepticism and thinking, that's never going to work for me. That's not going to work. My trick is too hardcore and like none of this awareness mojo jojo is gonna make a difference, but it's worth trying even if things go wrong, because if nothing works at the end of the day, I think as long as we're as long as we're working on the things that are accessible to us, if we're working on the pulling that's like, okay, I don't have like 5 exams tomorrow, I just have like a paper due and I'm like kind of stressed, and this paper's like, it's not a big deal, it's like an extra credit thing. So it's like, okay, I'll fight the battles I can fight and build myself up to address like the bigger urges in our lives. Basically, I always think, lists are fun, but the resilience is the most important thing. Again, I've been here. I was talking to someone today and they were like, I worked in the mental health space for 20 years. And I'm like, oh my God, me too. Like I should go on my LinkedIn and put that I've been a Trichotillomania researcher since I was 8 years old. Because, and I think a big part of it is like, even though my hair has come and it's gone and it's come again and it's gone again all these different times, one thing is I've always believed that I could change something. It wasn't always the fact that I was going to change like my hair, like it wasn't always the fact that I was going to grow my hair long, guaranteed, but I knew I could change how I felt about my hair, or I knew I could change how I think about my hair. I knew I could change how I see myself or talk to myself. There are a lot of different things that can change other than how I looked. And having, like a physical, non-physical, goal to work towards, I think has always been something that helps me a lot. So a few like ideas for you guys if you're rewatching this in the future, like what are some like sensations that you like personally? And I think that's also a big deal. Like you don't want to just get the fidget that everyone's using. You don't want to just like get the whatever that is trending on TikTok. You want to be able to try stuff. So I highly recommend going to like toy stores and little bookstores with children's sections. They always have a great range of fidgets to try out. And there are always lots of different ways that we could be, you know, trying to make our lives easier, essentially. So another approach to this, as like another example, is you could actually break it down by the time of day and when you pull the most. So this is another great awareness piece. If you know you are a nighttime puller, a lot of us are coming like home after a long day and decompressing. A lot of the times, compulsively pulling out our hair is an excellent way to re-regulate ourselves. So if you're a night puller, we should start brainstorming nighttime things that happen. But if you're maybe like me and the idea of like starting your day makes you distraught and you pull in the morning, we can come up with some like morning ideas too. So this is just like an example list that I've gathered from either my experiences or, you know, people around me. So just some ideas to kind of get you thinking. Of course. I know I just said don't buy what's popular, but like I really like things that have to be really firm, and they have to be like, I don't know, firm and very malleable. Like I feel like there's a lot of different categories of fidgets. Even things that I have never bought is I also keep a pile of smooth rocks on my desk. Just smooth rocks, you know, just hanging out on my desk at all times. Smooth rocks, squishy but firm. But even things like, you know, those wire ties that you use to like tie a bag of bread close. I keep one of those on my desk and I'll like twist it and untwist it throughout the day. I think a big part of BFRB, Trichotillomania, maybe mental health part is like kind of targeting that consumerism side of our brain that's like, I want to buy something. I'm not saying this is what you're saying, by the way. This is just like a general like observation I've made, is that a fidget that you really, really love could be $0. You just have to go around and touch a bunch of stuff in your house and like see what happens. Do you have a favorite fidget, Marissa? Yeah. Okay. Guest speaker.
Hello. I like fidgets that are like the like very tactile. I kind of like Play-Doh putty type of deals. I like bubble wrap. That's a good one. In terms of like low cost things, sticky tack is a good one. I keep like sticky tack at my desk. Sometimes even if I'm just like in a meeting, I'll just like rip up a piece of paper into tiny little shreds. It makes a mess, but like if you have a sticky note at home or a pad of like a sticky pad, you can do that, or even just drawing, doodling. That's what helps me fidget.
Fidgets can be whatever you want them to be. And I love that for us. And if all of this sounds really great and you're like, okay, but I don't know if that's going to work for me. Great. I love that we all know what the heck doesn't help, because sometimes that is like half of the battle. Is there another question? No. Yay. Okay. Yeah. Fidget show and tell. I love it. If you're having a hard time trying to conceptualize, like, I don't know, I'm not really a yoga person. I'm not really a like coloring person. I'm not really a like meditation person. It's all good. You can actually start by thinking about what are things that don't help you. Like I just think about all the times I've gotten a little slap to the wrist, and all the different ways someone has like spoken to me about my trick, and all the different ways that, you know, I would almost bully myself into pulling less. I know those things don't work, and then I can try to think about the inverse of that, basically. So just another fun question for everything. And I say all that because I think the intention of like our healing process does matter a lot, actually. It's the slide is just about like taking care of ourselves, but we can be doing quote unquote good things. But if we're doing good things with bad intentions, guess what? The outcome can still be bad. So these are some like trichotillomania examples, but like there's a lot of exercising examples or like fitness examples where people will say like, oh, I'm going to the gym 5 days a week because it's like self-care. But if they skip a day, like sometimes their negative self-talk gets them and they'll say like, you're so undisciplined, like how could you do that, blah 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 blah. For me, it's like I know having an early bedtime is important to me because if I stay up too late, I pull into the night. And then I could either go to sleep early and enjoy my life, or I could sit here and say, I can't believe you need an early bedtime just to not pull out your hair. How stupid can you be? No one else needs to try this hard to be normal. The source of these are all me, by the way, in case you're like, that's so mean. Who would ever say that? It's me. It's internalized self-hatred over many years. And it happens sometimes. But I wanted to like, these are like real examples. And whenever I share these, people resonate a lot with them. Yeah, because if you are doing all these nice things for yourself to help take care of you and your trick and your brain and everything, I know it just makes things worse. And the shame of having trick like is just amplified when we're quiet about it. So I'm here to be the biggest yapper of your life. If you need me to go tell someone about your trick, I can happily do that for you. Maybe it's like a Christmas carol. It's like I show up at your house. I'm like, hey everyone, guess who has trick? Let me tell you about it. That'd be crazy. But somebody was actually asking about like talking about trick to their family, maybe to people in their life. I think all of the slides I've like this whole presentation is all fun and dandy for ourselves, but if we can't get ourselves to bring this conversation like outside of our own bubble, I think it kind of defeats the purpose. Like, okay, yes, it's very important to like heal for ourselves, but to get like the support of the people around you or to learn that people are safe to like talk to about it is pretty game changing. So this is sort of my process of how I learned how to talk about my trick. Like I didn't wake up in 2019 ready to like do this presentation. In 2019, it was very awkward. I barely even said the words like I pull out my hair, I have trichotillomania. Those were all like completely new to me. So it's very hard to talk to like maybe your parents who don't have any mental health background. It's hard to talk to them about trick if you don't even know how to talk to yourself about trick as well. So you would think like talking to yourself is very straightforward and very easy. But there's like, I find two parts of it that does like make a difference. Like, first of all, just having that internal dialogue, like you would be amazed of how many people who have trichotillomania and have told me like, yeah, I've been doing this for like most of my life, like 30 or 40 years, but I've just never admitted to myself that it was a problem because I was too scared to admit it. I didn't want to have a problem, so I didn't let myself have a problem. So the first step anyone can do is like, how do I feel thinking about the fact that I pull out my hair? Like, what happens to me when I just like think about it? You can take that internal dialogue and kind of externalize it in a way. So that's like journaling, do a little like voice note, write a big long like thing on your notes app in your phone, and just get used to the idea of like communicating and like putting into words what you're feeling around your trick. Because then now that you've practiced like putting it into words, you can take it to like a support group. You can take it to maybe a counselor or a therapist, maybe a really close friend, someone who you kind of know is like a safe person. It's like, okay, yeah, this person, like, maybe they talk to me about their experience with ADHD. So if I talk to them about my trick, maybe it won't be too far of a stretch. And then once you get that, then you can get over here. And this is like where my parents this is where my parents are hanging out. They're great. I just, kind of use them for a bit for my presentation sometimes, but it's true. I think a lot of our parents kind of are here. So it is hard to go from this part to this part in one jump. we can build ourselves up. I have some examples in the slides, so if you ever want to come back to this and check it out, happy to do it. I guess senseless plug here is if you need a support group to join, I've got one and I heard it's pretty fun. So I don't know, share that info probably after the presentation and we'll have some links. But just to like get the brain juices going. And I think the process of how you talk to yourself about your trick, like now we're kind of going into like, we're moving away from the physical side of trick and we're going into that non-physical territory, like I was talking about. Like, yes, we can address the physical aspects of trick, of the pulling of the hair, but I don't want to neglect like the internal dialogue. I don't want to neglect like the emotional experience of having trichotillomania. So if you're going to have a fight with yourself about this, I want you to learn how to fight fair. And if these three things sound like relationship counseling things, it's because it is. Like, if you're gonna, talk to yourself about your trick, I don't want you to feel like you're in a losing battle. I want there to be neutral language, this is the worst my hair has ever looked versus I am noticing more bald spots than I've had in the past. Funny, quick story is that I was getting my haircut. Like last time I got a haircut a few months ago, I was walking to the hair salon and then my partner was asking me, "Are you excited for your haircut? Like, you haven't gotten a haircut in a few months." And my real response was, "I'm neither excited nor afraid for this haircut." And like, that is how deeply I have been training this neutral language situation. It's like, I want to just be neutral about everything about my hair. And also to avoid hyperbole, like, I'm not pulling out all of my hair, okay? I've noticed I'm pulling more than I'm usually pulling. Some examples, I hope that kind of gets your brain going a little bit. And I think ultimately, we can like hang out on this slide for a hot minute, but thinking about what does recovery even look like? I think this is something it took me a while to even think about, because what else is recovery if not long hair, like long thick hair, no more hair pulling. My parents love me, I never have to worry about pulling again in my life. And that was kind of the only picture of recovery. And then it wasn't until I really spent the time on myself to think about like, okay, but I would love to go swimming and not care about what my hair looks like. I would love to like get a haircut without needing like 5 therapy sessions leading up to it and after. Maybe it's buying a wig, maybe it's shaving your head. Like any of these and beyond are completely valid. I just want, each and every one of you to really think about like what you want from your trick, because I think a lot of us pick up recovery goals from other people, or maybe have outdated recovery goals that like, yeah, I'm gonna grow my hair 5 feet, and we decided that when we were 12 and then never like revisited it. I think it's a good time to revisit. I always think it's a good time to revisit, but you can always come back to this slide if you're looking for ideas, because doing something that's based on like exactly what you want is always going to be better. Then when you have the goal, let's make it even more accessible. I'm always saying start small, do it even smaller. You want to do 10 push-ups, go lie on the floor for 10 minutes. Like, I'm so serious that working towards your goal in the most shitty way possible. Sorry, am I allowed to swear? Okay, oh my God. This just came out of me. I'm gonna like get a clip of that. It's so funny. You have to work towards your goal. Working towards your goal in the most shitty way possible is still working towards your goals, guys. Like, I believe in you. And if it, feels good to you to share your journey with just one person, does make a big difference. I'm gonna don't look at the slide. We're gonna pause really quick. Everyone's cool? Everyone happy? Okay, awesome. I really appreciate it, guys. It's like, oh my God, am I good at presentations or what? This is crazy. This will be in the slides. So these are like clickable links that you can go to. This is a link to join the support group that I host every 2 weeks. Totally free and it's online, so I try to make it easy. And it's just a space where we can like check in with our BFRBs. We don't set, someone asked me if we set goals during these meetings. I'm like, not really, actually. So it's like, have your goal, but we're not gonna like check, we're not checking homework. It's not a check homework kind of group. We just want a space where we can just talk about Trek with people who just get it. I also co-host a podcast. It's called the Fidget Podcast. It is basically 50 episodes of yapping about questions other than how do I stop. So we talk about beauty standards, we talk about like generational trauma, we talk about all sorts of things that might interest you if you're just interested in learning more about BFRBs. What's beyond like the how to stop pulling, that could be interesting to you. I've got a few book recommendations and where to access for any UVic people getting it. Highly recommend social media creators who talk about Trichotillomania, like me. And of course, the best resource you'll always have, 100% free and always with you, is you. Self-exploration and asking yourself why you are doing certain things is never not gonna help. So I really hope, after today, like I said, I hope this isn't the last conversation you have about Trick, and that I hope it leads you kind of down a rabbit hole, but it's a rabbit hole like that's fun, and it's a rabbit hole that helps you and makes you excited. These are 2 books that I highly recommend. Again, I was like, okay, I'm doing a university talk. Let me throw more books at them. I actually brought a copy of Brain Lock with me. So again, anyone in the UVic like universe watching, if you want to come check it out, I'll be here for a bit after, and you can come take a look. But Can't Just Stop is a book about compulsions and investigation of compulsions. You can order this book online. Check your local bookstores. They're usually able to order it for you. Don't support Amazon. I'm like just gonna say that. Like, I'm not into it. Shouldn't be either. And check your local library, because I found Can't Just Stop at my old library. So yours might have it too. That book is really interesting because Trichotillomania is mentioned for like 2 paragraphs, but the rest of the book is still interesting and also relevant. It talks about like gambling addiction, porn addiction. It talks about like smoking and kind of the neurological effects of these things, which I found very interesting. And then Brain Lock is actually an OCD book, technically. It's kind of it's some kind of workbook-esque, but Jeffrey M. Schwartz, he does a really good job just explaining like what's going on like neurologically for us that makes things hard to stop. A quick like spiel about where to find more books about trichotillomania and related to Trick. I think if you're looking for books around Trick, look for books about addiction, OCD. Books about eating disorders is also like very relevant, actually, like to like, even though the topic matter is different, I found there was like a lot of overlap. Books I would suggest avoiding, actually, because you would think it's like Trick related. It's actually not. There's actually books about like habit building or like how to stop habits. So stuff like Atomic Habits and stuff like that is a really great book, but isn't exactly relevant to trichotillomania. So just like how to find more research. That's been my like book experience. Because I would read a habit book and be like, it takes 21 days to start a new habit, and I'm like, this isn't the same. So that brings us to the end of the presentation portion of our talk today. Just want to thank you all for your time. You could be doing anything, but you're here learning about trichotillomania, which is very exciting to me. I'm happy to take any follow-up questions. You can send me an email. You can find me on Instagram. There is a group chat on Instagram, which is like kind of fun. I go in there, I post pictures of my fidgets. I check in and be like, how spicy is your trick today? And our next support meeting is actually next Wednesday. So on the day, whenever you're watching this, The next meeting is on February 19th, 5 o'clock Pacific time, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. And then it's every 2 weeks in the future. So if you don't make it one time, just come check with me, see when the next meeting is. That is what I brought today. Does anyone have questions, or we can just like, we can just chill? Like, of course.